You're up, Jen. Over to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, what a group of people. Do you know what those slides tell me? That we're in a great market. That's what I see when I see those slides. So congratulations to everyone. And so excited to be with you here this morning. So excited to have Brian Burnett come up from St. George. Good to see you. I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet. I was getting ready this morning and I was thinking about my day. And you know, this 10, 15 minutes that I'm up here like consumes my entire day, but it really doesn't. You think it does when you're a speaker. But I was thinking, you know what? I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that I will be in a room today of friends, of new friends, of old friends, of dear friends, of people that I'm going to be friends with, and a group of people that I love and who are committed to learning and growing. That's what I love. So congratulations to you. Thank you all so much for being here. Can you show the first slide, Danette? And I also picture myself being Danette, because when Danette's up here, she's always smiling and she's always happy, and I always think of her when she's smiling. So she's my idol that I'm working after. How many people in here by raise of hands are golfers? How many of you golfers have been to Pebble Beach? We have a couple hands. How many people have been to Pebble Beach who are not golfers? Oh, you don't have to be a golfer to be in Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach is one of my absolute favorite places to be. So a couple years ago, it was towards the end of COVID, George and I went on a trip and we went up to Pebble Beach. We love to golf. And as we get off the plane and we're driving to the resort, we're talking like, what are we gonna do tomorrow? What do we have planned? Talking about golfing and some courses we're gonna play. And I just say, out of the blue, I say, you know what? I have never seen a whale. Isn't that crazy? I've never seen, maybe it's whale season, I don't know. Maybe we'll get to see a whale, but I just kind of put that out there and we're just excited about our day. Well, this picture, because it was the end of COVID, not a lot of people were traveling yet, we got a room inside the resort that overlooked the 18th green, where we could literally walk out on our balcony and look down on the green and watch people finish the round of golf. It was just amazing. So we wake up the next morning, the sky is blue, not a cloud in the sky, the birds are flying overhead. If you have not been to Pebble Beach, it is somewhere very sacred and special because there is just an energy there, and it's so peaceful, so beautiful. You feel like you're at one with nature. And there's also this drive called 17-mile drive. So whenever we golf, we go on this drive and it takes you along the coast. I mean, it's magnificent. So I hope I'm painting a picture of how amazing this is. So we order breakfast, George is out on the balcony, and I come out from getting ready, and he's on the balcony, and he is like meditating with his arms open like this, just like basking in the sun, and I'm laughing, so I grab my phone, and I'm trying to go out to take a picture of him, and I notice something catches my eye that's right above his shoulder. So I look out in the ocean, and I see this splashing, and I see a whale, and I start freaking out. I am screaming, oh my gosh, there is a whale in the ocean. I have never seen one before. I'm just like, I've attracted this to myself. Like, I believe in the law of attraction, and I've done this. I am so powerful. Can you believe there's a whale? And it's beautiful. We're in Pebble Beach, and I am really freaking out. Take pictures, I'm taking videos, talking about my well, everything's so excited. So we go on with our day, and we go and we're playing Pebble Beach that day. Hit a great drive down a fairway, and I'm like, oh, this is just a great day. It's beautiful, and there you cannot rent a golf cart, so you have to walk, which is actually a benefit because the grounds are so stunningly beautiful that you walk along the course, you really get to enjoy every part of the hole. So as we're walking, you know, it's just magnificent. Playing so good, having so much fun. It's one of those times, you know, when you go on a trip with your spouse and you're like, oh my gosh, I do love you. Like, we're having fun. Isn't this so great? Isn't the world wonderful? It's the best. It's the best. So And we walk up on the tee box, and right along the 18th hole, it falls right along the coastline. I mean, that's the grade of the 18th hole, and the hole just goes further out. So you're right along the water. So I go up on the tee box, and we're waiting for the people to finish ahead of us before we can hit. And I'm out just standing there looking out over the ocean, and I noticed down in the ocean that the tide has receded, so it's low tide now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if my well is still up there. And I go and I look out to where my well was this morning, and I see something. And it's a rock, a great big rock that is now protruding out of the water. And I'm like, huh, well, that's really interesting, because that's exactly where my well was. And George walks up behind me, and I go, honey, look, out in the water where my well was this morning, there's a rock. I go, do you think that my well was a rock? And he looks out there and he goes, I think your well was a rock. And I said, I can't believe that. In fact, we have one of my videos, if it'll play, I will show you where my well rock was.
Where's your rock?
That video is from a trip from when George went back to Pebble Beach and took a picture of my rock. And I said these words to myself out loud. I said, I don't care that there is a rock out in the ocean. I saw a whale this morning, and I'm sticking to my story. That's my story. And what surprised me with that, though, I literally said that out loud, I thought, I think this is the first time in my life when I have deliberately told myself a story consciously that even though all the odds were against me, I still believed it. And so it made me really start thinking about the stories that we tell ourselves. What I was telling myself, what I grew up telling myself, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough. I've got a lot of, like a list full of I'm not enoughs that I have believed and told myself my entire life. So thinking about that, what is the story? Well, really, when you have an not enough on the end of it, all it is a fear. Truly, when it comes down to it, it all leads back to fear. Did you know that when we are born, a baby is born with two fears? Primary fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. So when you take that into consideration, every fear you have is made up. God did not give you the fear of being nervous about calling or prospecting. God didn't give you the fear of door knocking. God didn't give you the fear of not being enough. God didn't give you the fear of not thinking that you're smart enough. Every fear besides falling and loud noises is made up. It's kind of an interesting concept to think about. That is how powerful our minds are. They did a study in the University of Chicago. They took 3 groups of people. The first group, they had them come in, they said, okay, for the next 30 days, we want you to take an hour a day and shoot free throws. For 30 days straight, over and over and over again, you have to shoot free throws. Then they took a second group of people and they brought them in and they said, we don't want you to do anything, like nothing. You just show up in 30 days and we'll talk to you then. The third group of people, they told them, you have to take an hour a day to sit down and visualize yourself making free throws and making it in the basket over and over and over again for 30 days, an hour every day. So after 30 days, they brought these 3 groups of people back. The first group, they tested them. They improved by 24%. So the people who practiced every day for an hour making free throws, they improved to 24%. The second group who did nothing, they were nothing. They didn't get worse. They didn't get better, they were neutral. What's crazy is they brought the third group of people in and had them shoot. They improved by 23%. 23%. And they weren't even allowed to touch a basketball for the 30 days. They were 1% lower than the people who actually practiced. That's how powerful your mind is, how powerful visualization is. It's an amazing thing. So my call to action, my challenge, my request, my plea to you is this. What stories are you telling yourself about your life, about your relationships, about business, about prospecting, about making money, about how enough you are in this world? What do those stories look like? Because when it really comes down to it, we all make up stories. We all do. We all make up stories. But what kinds of stories are you going to start telling yourself? So this is my advice. If you're going to tell yourself a story, make sure that it's a great one, because you deserve it. Thank you for letting me start some time.
All right, thank you. That was fun. I remember that day. I was a little more direct than that, by the way. I'm like, that's not a whale, it's a rock. She's making me look like I'm nicer than I am, Ruby. I just want you to know I'm not that nice. I may have even said, you're crazy, something like that. I'm just kidding, no. That was great, I love that, that was fun. Those were great times. And by the way, if you haven't been to the Monterey Peninsula, make sure you make a quick either drive or flight out there. Again, who's been out to the Monterey Peninsula or Pebble? Okay, you know there's more than just Temple Square that exists in this state, right? Just check. All right, hope you guys are seeing the great world that you each live in. It doesn't take much to get there. All right, with that, let me just grab a piece of paper. I want to share something with you. So years ago, I had the opportunity when I was selling real estate full time. I found out I was doing some math, and it's 28 years ago, this July, that I've been in the business. And Brian, how long have you been in the business? 20. All right. So somewhere in the midst of that, I can remember there was a time where myself, Brian, others, you very well maybe in this room, but I remember even Dave Stocco and others, we were always out there competing to try to take and to get business. And one of my favorite stories of Brian is simply this. Here he is selling 50 plus homes a year. He lives up here along across the Wasatch Front. I think he's primarily working down in the Utah County, but he gets his way up here a little bit up into Salt Lake County. And he's selling a ton of real estate. He's doing incredibly well. And then he has this epiphany. And he has this idea as to where he wants to raise his family and really where he wants to live. And he concluded that he wanted to live down in St. George, Utah. Now, I don't know many of you that if you're earning $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year, that you'd say, you know what, I'm going to change it all and start from zero again. As if I didn't even make that money, I'm going to start it all over. And so what did he do? He packed his bags and his family and they moved down to St. George, Utah. Well, we were just kind of getting our start down there in St. George and really weren't established enough in what we are today down there with nearly 100 agents down in the Washington County area. And so as much as I wanted Brian to join us then, we really weren't the right fit, especially with what he needed, the requirements of his business, really where he was trying to go. And I know he's going to share a lot with you about that, but the reason I wrote down some notes or had some printed for me is I remember when I sat down with Brian when he joined the company, he was earning around $600,000. And we've always had some fun when we sit down with one another, and he would say, my goodness gracious, every time I'm with you and every time I'm a year longer with you, I seem to be doubling my business. And I don't necessarily think it's the credit of really me or even Ultimate Organization or other mentors and coaches and individuals, because obviously I know that Brian works his tail off. And although he's let a lot of people help him get there, and he's certainly good to acknowledge all of those individuals who have helped him get there, the reality is that he's put in the work. But I just want to give you some numbers just to give you perspective and hope that you'll hear these, because even though I am a realtor, still at heart, I'm not making them up. I just want you to know that. All right, so he joined us in about 2016, somewhere in there, end of 2015, if I recall. Maybe 16, is that about right?
Yeah.
So I've got numbers to where in 2017, he was earning $500,000 or $600,000. He went to $1.1 million in income in 2018. In 2018, he went to $1.2 million. In 2019, he went to 1.6 million. In 2020, he went to 2.1 million. In 2021, he went to 2.8 million. And year to date, he's earned 1.9 million and is almost on track for $4 million in 2022. And it's just a testament that there is literally nothing about this business that you can't learn and that you can't do. So my challenge to each one of you is, one, pull out a blank piece of paper, take some ferocious notes, learn from someone who was one of the great students of the game. As I remember years ago, he's sitting there in the back, Justin Udy, who said, man, master your craft. Well, all I know is that this is a young man and a man that I revere and respect and love dearly, who has figured out how to master his craft and is an example to all of us of not only how to sell a lot of real estate, but to be insanely profitable. Mr. Brian Burnett.
Does that work? Can you hear me okay? Thank you so much. It's an honor to come up here. Everest has changed my life, like George was saying. I started at 500. It's just been huge growth from then, and a lot of it is to George, Everest, the leadership team. There's a conversation George and I had in Las Vegas. I don't know if you remember this. A few years ago, I had just hit the $1 million mark, and I was just so excited, so stoked. And he looked at me and he said, how quick can you get to 2? And in my mind, I'm like, never. But I just remember how hard that hit me. I'm like, and it just got the wheels turning. So it is such an honor to work for people who push you. So thank you. Also, my team and my staff, I think they're watching, and honestly, I come in every single day and I just create chaos. And they make it smooth, and they make me look good, and I get all the credit. So they do so much. And I'm also grateful that they didn't publish what I'm going to talk about today, because nobody would show up. Today, the topic that I wrote is developing a championship mindset for prospecting. So I'm going to just share about 20 minutes, and then I'll have 10 minutes. You guys can ask any question you want, and I'll answer. Okay? So the first thing I wrote down, the definition of a champion is a person who has defeated all opponents in a competition. Now, in this market, do the other agents really even matter? Who's our biggest opponent? It's ourselves, especially in our mindset. I'm not the greatest salesperson out there. I'm not the greatest dynamic personality. I'm not the tallest guy in the room, that's for sure. But I can prospect consistently. So I'll share with you my numbers. So I started tracking 17 years ago. I'll share with you these numbers. So over 17 years, I averaged 10,000 contacts a year. 170,000 contacts since then. I averaged 950 hours of prospecting a year, okay? So since then, that's 16,100 hours of prospecting. If you divide that out, it's almost 2 years, day and night, straight prospecting. So when I tell you I'm consistent, that's the one thing I know. And today I'm going to share with you basically everything that I've learned that has helped me to consistently prospect at that level and not burn out. And I'm, in fact, excited and doing more than ever. Who's excited about this market? I am so excited about this market. This is what I was made for, is this market right now. So, question for you guys: who hates prospecting in this room? Okay. Who loves prospecting? Liars. Yep. To give you guys a little bit of hope, I can promise in this room nobody hated prospecting or was more adverse to prospecting than I was at first, okay? So growing up, I was the most introverted, shy, just amiable, quiet person you could meet. When I was a senior in high school, I couldn't even go to a cash register because I was afraid to talk to people. I'm talking clinically, right? So fortunately, being in Utah, I was able to serve a church mission for 2 years. And you guys pretty much know how that works, right? But I'd like to share the story of how it kind of changed my life. So basically, I went to Texas, flew to Texas. They picked me up, I introduced to my partner, we grabbed my bags, we drove to the apartment, we put the bags just like in the front room, we left the front door, closed the door, and guess what we started doing? Knocking doors, right? And we ended up doing it all day long. And I remember just terrified at first, just going to the doors. And then the next day, guess what we did? Door knocked, literally, all day long. And this went on for 2 years. And 20, whatever years it is later, I'm still prospecting all day long. But I get paid, so it's nicer this time. But there's 2 things I want to share from you can write down that I learned from this. Number 1, don't unpack your bags. What that means basically is I see so many agents who are always trying to get ready to get going. Everything has to be perfect. I have to have everything aligned. I have to know everything what to say. Don't unpack your bags. If you're going to get into this business and be a prospector, you just got to jump in. Number 2, you'll discover the best version of yourself when you're outside of your comfort zone. So you'll find the best version of yourself outside of your comfort zone. So while I was knocking doors at that time, I realized, hey, I actually kind of like doing this, and I actually am pretty good at it. And that's when I decided that I was going to get into a sales career, and I happened to choose real estate when I got home. Okay, so basically what I want to share with you guys today is my routines. The routines that I've set up that have allowed me to keep going at this level for so long. Now, the purpose of the routines that I've created, it's all about creating a peak performance energy. A peak performance energy that I'll be at a peak energy level at 8 o'clock in the morning. So everything I do is centered around that. When I say a peak performing energy, if you ever watch like professional athletes that get into a state like Steph Curry when he's playing basketball and everything's going in, that's that whole state we're trying to create for ourselves. Now, the 2 biggest factors for like creating this energy is there's 2 things: what you put in your mouth, what you're eating, and what you're putting in your head. And what's beautiful about that is we have complete control over both of those things. Therefore, we have control over achieving our goals and dreams. So do you guys want to hear my routines?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it. So my routines start the day before I go home, or at the end of the day before I go home. So at the end of each day, I clear my desk, I clean it off, and I get all of my numbers ready to go for tomorrow. When I show up the next day, I don't really want to have to come in and think what I'm going to have to do. I don't want to have to unpack my bag. I want to be able to just jump on. I want to have a clear mind and focus. And you're going to hear me say that a few times. I don't want to have to think about it. Okay, second routine is I'm home for dinner with my family every time at the same day, or every day at the same time, 6 o'clock. I'm always home to be with my family. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing to me. So our food is already planned. It's very clean, very healthy. So here's a side tip. I have several coaches in all areas of my life. I have a real estate coach, I have a financial coach, I have a health and food and wellness coach. I budget about $5,000 a month for coaching personally. So when I'm home for dinner, this is my rest and recovery period. This is the time where I'm not doing anything real estate. So I see agents all the time who are taking calls all night long from clients, driving around, showing. When I'm done, I'm done. And when you're a prospector, and when you produce in the morning, you control your schedule. Does that make sense? Because if you don't have boundaries, you will burn out. Okay, next routine. For me, it was important to create a sleep routine, okay? So I'll share with you how I set this up. First of all, no screen time 1 hour before I go to sleep. That means no TV, no phones, anything screen time. Why? I don't know. My coach told me don't do that, so I don't do that. Number 2, I always read a really good book before I go to sleep. So if you come to my house, on my nightstand, my wife hates this, but I have stacks of books just like flowing over onto the floor. Read a good book. Number 2, on my nightstand, I have my business plan. Does everybody know what a business plan is? Super simple, and it basically has production goals for the year. Who needs to review their business plan a little more often? Yes. And the last thing that I do before I go to sleep is I write down all my goals. Basically, what I want to accomplish tomorrow, for the week, for the month, for the year. I write down everything. The reason why I do this is I want to program my mind before I go to sleep. While I'm sleeping, I want my mind to figure out how to make my dreams and my goals come true. If you think about it, what's the alternative to doing that? Watching Netflix, Instagram, news, filling our brains with crap before we go to bed? Can't sleep, we have anxiety, we wake up groggy. Do that day after day after day. What's the difference going to be? Huge? It's huge. It's scary sometimes what we put in our minds before we go to sleep. Here's a quote from Earl Nightingale. He said, "You become what you think about most of the time. Be careful what you put in your mind." Okay, so now it's time for the morning routine that I've set up. So I wake up at the same time every single morning. My alarm goes off at 4 a.m. I have a system for what I eat, for what I drink, and then I start reading a great book. So I end my day with a great book, I start my day with a great book. Number 2, exercise. Having an exercise routine is critical to max energy. And as I said, I have a coach for that. So I get to show up to my gym, to my trainer. I don't have to think about it. Everything just happens. It's a system. It's a routine. Number 3, a clean, healthy breakfast, of course. All right, next step, meditation. I added meditation to my routine about 5 years ago, and that's when I saw the biggest growth in my business. So I'll share with you how mine is set up. I follow just like a guided 25-minute meditation. The first 5 minutes is basically just spent clearing my mind, just having nothing. It's crazy if you do this, you'll see your mind just goes to the most random places and usually tends to go negative automatically. The next part, and Jennifer talked about this, so I'm so glad she did. The next part of my meditation is I vision my future. I see my goals. I see what it feels like to have already accomplished what I want to accomplish for my family, what I want to have, go, do, my team, like everything in my life. I feel what it feels like to already be there, so that when I come out of a meditation state, I'm already performing at a level that I'm not there yet, but I feel like I'm there. So when I'm on the phones, I'm already playing at the next level. And the last 5 minutes of my meditation is spent in just deep gratitude. Gratitude for everything that's in my life at this point, and everything that will be in my future life. Earl Nightingale, I love Earl Nightingale, but he said this: our personal environment, the world with which we live and work, is simply a mirror of attitude and our expectations. We've got to raise our expectations. It's unlimited. So here's a side tip. Whining, complaining, scarcity thinking is an energy drain. Gratitude is an energy burst. So if you ever just need to pick up your energy, just go into gratitude. And I learned that from George. Okay, guys, so it's 7 o'clock in the morning. Have I had a pretty good day so far? In fact, if the rest of the day just goes to crap, I've had a great day. Like it can't be a bad day. And that's the beauty of it. But if you come out of this kind of routine, how are you going to be? How's your day going to be? Good? Next routine, script practice. 20 years later, I practice twice a day still. Here's a quote, and I don't know who said it, but it says, there is no glory in practice, but without practice, there is no glory. And I don't know why agents don't practice. I mean, some do, but not at a high level. You look at all the highest paid athletes, performers, all they do is practice. Practice not only gets my skills at a higher level, but it has more to do with mindset. How would you feel if you showed up like on the phones or at a door or an appointment and you know what to say in every single situation? Whatever objection they give to you, you can handle it 5 different ways, easy. How is your mindset going to be? Opposite, what if you have no idea what to say? or that you're scared they're gonna give you an objection, how is your mindset going to be? So like I said, I practice first thing in the morning. I practice with my team. We go through our prospecting scripts, we go through our objections, we warm up, and we're on. The second, after prospecting, for me, I do a second practice, which is the listing presentation. So I'm going through the presentation with another partner. If no one's available, I practice by myself and I write out the listing presentation, word for word. Because if I go into an appointment and I'm competing with somebody, I can guarantee you I've out-practiced them. I guarantee you I've outworked them. And now, finally, we're to prospecting. So, here's a couple of things I'll share with you. Number one, my best tip I could give you that made my business explode was I set one pre-qualified appointment every single day, no matter what. So one of my coaches said, gave me this challenge. Brian said, all you have to do today is set one qualified appointment. You can't do anything else. You can prospect, follow up, use the restroom, or go on an appointment. If you haven't set an appointment, you can do nothing else. If you haven't done anything else, you get to keep prospecting all day long until 8 o'clock at night. And so I committed to that, super uncomfortable, right? And it took me, and I was at the office till 8 o'clock at night, 100 contact days, many times. But at some point, it became a habit. And I found out, oh, okay, I've got to prospect better people, I've got to get better at closing, more energy than I have to expect. And then let's say I did set an appointment. Well, then I don't want to have an all day tomorrow trying to sell. I'm going to set another one right now, so I'm ready to go for tomorrow. And if you do a appointment a day, that's 100 transactions. And today's commissions, it's probably 1.5 million. It's very simple. I also added this. I prospect for 4 hours a day right now from 8 to noon. I go 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. 50 minutes focused, 10 minutes rejuvenating, looking at either a good book, goals, YouTube, anything to just keep the energy going. Next step, I have multiple sources that I call every single day, whether it's expireds, for sale by owners, just listed, just sold, rental properties, database. I feel like if I go through one for too long, I start seeing energy lower. But if I switch it up, I'm back up. So you've got to have all these different sources that you want to hit. And then the next step is I'm looking for immediate today appointments, but I'm also looking for future business by building my database. I started over around 2012, 0 database. I have 2,000 database now. And that's a good portion of what I call. Okay, next phase, lunch routine. Obviously a planned lunch, recover, and then from there it's admin, listing appointments, presenting offers. I don't do that as much. And then appointments, prospecting, and then clear off my desk. Get ready for tomorrow. That's the Brian Burnett daily routine. It's not too bad, right? Who can do that? Yeah. All right, so we've got a few minutes. Okay.
Hey, it's great.
If you guys want, I'm happy to answer any questions. Raise your hand and I'll answer your questions. Yes? I have 5 kids, so that's kind of a circus sometimes, but I'm 30-10. Yeah.
I have so many questions, but I love that you have so much balance. That's amazing. So what is the role of your team? So you're not presenting offers. What does your team look like and what do they do?
Great. So what does my team look like? So I have 3 admin and 1 runner. So we have our main operation manager. She basically has been with me for 9 years. Just makes sure everything runs. So I have a listing coordinator who basically gets my appointments ready for the day. I give her my listing packet when I get it. She does everything from there. Showings, feedback, photos, everything. And then she also presents offers. And then we have a transaction coordinator who's just doing all the transactions. Then we have a runner who's driving around doing the signs and whatever stuff we need to be done.
So when you basically meet with your sellers or your buyers, you just let them know, I don't deal with the offers, you just set that expectation in the beginning?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we have scripts for how it's all set up.
Yeah.
Basically, I can share it with you. So if we get an offer, my staff will call first and say, hey, this is Brian Burnett's offer presenter or whatever. Brian got you a great contract. He is in a meeting right now. I can either present this offer to you now, or I could have him call you later this afternoon. What would you prefer? Thank you.
And then, I'll do one more. So what is with your amount of volume, how are you not doing evening and weekend appointments?
That's a great question. So how am I doing evening? Well, I don't show buyers. So if you're listing, you don't have to do the weekends as much. But I just control my schedule.
So is one of your admins your showing agent?
No, we have some buyers agents on the team.
Okay,
So they would show properties on the weekends.
okay, got it, awesome, thank you.
Yeah. The very back.
What prospecting source do you get the most business from?
What prospecting source do I get the most business? Right now, it's definitely database, which is past clients, center of influence, probably 65%. Yes.
What's a good book to you?
What's that?
What's a good book to you? You say a lot of our free good
Oh,
books.
like a good book? Oh man, I'm reading several right now. My favorite, I just finished The Happiest Man on Earth, or Happiest Man Alive. Fantastic book. I'm reading, I can't remember the title of the one I'm reading right now, but Happiest Man Alive.
What's the qualifications for you to work with you? Like, what do you expect from people that you hire to work with you?
As far as like clients,
No, assistants.
oh, a staff? That's a great question. We just want, the people on my team are all very positive. There's never any drama, and they're very professional and willing to like get out of their comfort zone and grow. I surround myself with people who want to grow. Like if you don't want to grow, you don't really want to be around you too much.
What's your favorite charity?
Charity? Mine mostly goes to my church.
How do you handle your family reunions and family functions? Do you attend them or you try to refrain and stick to your schedule?
That's a really good question. So, this year I went on more vacations I've ever been on. And so we basically set our schedule for the next year with my wife and family and just plug it in. And then you reverse engineer, like, okay, this is my goal. Well, these are the days I have to work. So how productive do I need to be every day?
Brian, I have a super tricky one for you. I noticed that you list your properties with 2.5% VAC.
Yes.
Would you tell us a little bit about that? Are you negotiating at 5% commission to make discounting it all, or and what's your reasoning behind such a low VAC?
Yeah, I love that question. Well, maybe we'll change, but while the market was hot, I was still doing 6% or more and taking everything on my side and 2.5% on their side. Why? Because I could, and it was fun. Yeah, Jennifer.
I know with you sharing your schedule, that's what supports you. But what is your big audacious why? Like what keeps you going year after year and earning more and more? Like what is your big vision out there that you might be, that even still to this day makes you feel uneasy?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So what's my big audacious goal? Well, the good thing that's helped me a lot is I've surrounded myself with people, not just like in the real estate community, but other friends who are out producing me for sure in other areas. So I've just always got people around me and I feel like, man, I'm really not doing that well, So that I love that. But for me, I'm just trying to figure out how to get to 5 million and then 10. Yeah, I still have a 3-year-old at home, 4-year-old, so I have a long time to keep doing this. And I don't ever feel comfortable staying at the same level. That makes me nervous.
How do you work with your database and your SOI? Do you ask for referral every time you call them? You've got a 2,000-person database. So are you asking for referral every time, or are you doing functions, events? How are you working with your database?
Yeah, so I'm super introverted. I never do functions. Makes me uncomfortable. Maybe I should. But I definitely call them. I call them once a quarter. We have them categorized as A, Bs, and Cs. So A's we call a lot, Bs once a quarter. And yeah, I have a script. Basically, how are you? Here's some information. Who do you know that we could help? Thank you. You just go through them. It's all systemized, I just get it. Just shows up on my desk, yeah, here.
Building off of that, I feel like in the morning you might get more objections on the prospecting where some of your
Oh, so he asked, like, do you get more objections because it's early in the morning? You know what, I get ejected all day long by almost everybody. All I'm looking for is 1 or 2 yeses, so if they're motivated and they're good, they'll be a yes, so. Write down what's holding you back and then practice some answers for that, 3 or 4 ways. That's a good question. Way back against the wall.
How do you build your database?
How do you build your database?
Yeah.
So basically, I'm calling all day long, and I'm basically looking for people, those people in the neighborhood who basically know everyone's business. Like, they'll tell you everyone in the neighborhood, like, what they're going. I add those people in my database. They're golden. And then people that I meet, they're like, hey, thanks for calling. I'm gonna retire in a year or whatever reason, and then I know they have a specific reason, I'll add them. And then we have a system of how we send them a card and just follow up, so, yeah.
So who do you coach with your health and real estate, et cetera, and what scripts do you use?
So George personally coaches me. I have a financial coach. My wellness coach is Chris DeVecchio, fantastic guy. And then what did you say?
As far as the scripts, do you use your own or?
Yeah, basically, I use Everest scripts. And then, George and I have used the same scripts for 20 years, so I could rattle them off to you all day long. Call me in the middle of the night, I could rattle them off to you.
What database system do you use?
I used Follow Up Boss. Follow Up Boss, that's my CRM. Am I good?
I'm speaking, I have a question
Yeah.
for you. What was the transition for you mentally? I mean, I know you and I have talked about this, but the person who was earning $500,000 versus the person who's earning $1 million, person who's now gonna go earn $5 million is never the same person. So what would be 1 or 2 things you would say that was the major change for me mentally? Because first you had to see it before you created it. So what happened in your process? I think it was the triggers that said, oh wait, I can now go do that. Yes, I know I asked you, hey, when are you gonna get to 2 million? But for you internally, what had to happen?
That's a great question. I guess I don't know. But I just kept showing up every day and exposing myself to books, people, bigger things, like on a daily basis. Like all these routines I've just told you, I do them every single day and I never miss because I'm programming my mind. So I don't know if there's a specific time. I would say this though, the most difficult thing is to go from 250,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 to say $1 million or so. Going from 1 to 2 was easy. And then up from there. And the reason why is because at 250 to 500, you're living a pretty good life actually. You're making good money, you can travel, you have a car, a house, and there's really no need to get out of your comfort zone at that point, right? So that was the biggest challenge, was breaking that barrier. Okay, I guess, just tell me when I'm gonna shut down.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, right here.
So when you're prospecting, do you mostly call, do you go door knocking? What is your method of prospecting and how do you go about choosing?
Okay, so you asked me how do I prospect. I used to door knock. Now I'm on the phones because most of my calls are database, a lot of them, half of them. And then I just, for self-honor expired, just like I said, just keep switching it up. Yeah, right here.
So with a wife and 5 children and your daily plan, do they adhere to their own schedules or do they work around you?
Yeah, so lucky. My wife is basically so supportive. She's on the same kind of routine. So she follows the whole morning and evening routine, but then she has her own thing that she does. And we go to bed and our kids are on their own if they're not in bed. So we don't even know what happens at night, honestly. Who knows? Yeah.
That's what I was really curious about because I only have 3 kids and I find it very challenging for them to not hijack my
day. So like, I'm just astounded that you can maintain this routine and that your wife can maintain it as well.
And it's huge to have your partner on the same page, and so it just makes such a great synergy. And this summer is the first summer where we didn't get off, we didn't go to bed late ever, and I don't know how it happened, but they know our dreams and goals, like what we want to accomplish. We talk about it, we look at it, we see it, and they can, they're probably learning from it.
How old is your oldest?
She is 15.
And they just go to bed.
I don't know. I don't know, but we're up early and we're loud at like, 6 in the morning, so they're having to get up, so. Who knows? We just do our thing. Okay, one more. Yeah, so things will come up, emergencies. I would always say be ahead of your goal. Always do more than you say you're gonna do every day. Plan for emergencies. You have great staff and people in your lives that can help you with anything you need. There's only a couple things I'm really good at, and those are the 2 things I basically focus on. And hopefully they can handle the rest. Okay, sorry, one more. Either one, okay, we'll do 2 more and then I'm done. Right here.
I just had a quick question because obviously we have a lot of high-producing agents here and teams, not obviously at your level, but what 2 or 3 things that are your biggest takeaways that you would give them to start moving their team to where they're producing in your direction?
That's a great question as far. I just started, like I have a team, small buyer team, and I'm still trying to figure that one out. I just show them what I do every day and trying to get them to follow that example. But I would just go through those routines that I just shared with you, see which one would have the biggest impact, and start that one like tomorrow. Just the fundamentals. Yep, and then one more, there was one more gal, okay.
It sounds like you have a really good relationship and give and take with your wife. Does she take care of kids, homework, dinner, laundry, all of that kind of have someone who does?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Deanna, right? Okay. She's like, hey, I want to get my production up, but I have this reason. I'm a mom, and I said, I totally understand. There's a book I recommended, it's called Who Not How. And it basically talks about if there's anything in your life that is getting you off of your goal or routine, write it down and find a person that you can put in that spot to take over. So we actually have a really good nanny that comes in and watches the kids, does homework, cleans, cooks, and she's amazing. They actually listen to her, discipline. So it's like, oh wow, we just upgraded. But as long as we're there to say we love you and show them love, and then they have this better parent, then yes. And that's in every area of my life. So I just find these great people and plug them in, and I just do what I do. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. You're welcome to call me.
Hey, thank you. That was awesome. I learned some good stuff. I kept reiterating to myself, it was just the power of structure. I'm just gonna take a few minutes and just talk about a couple of things. So 3 weeks ago, Jennifer and I were driving down the road with our family in a large minivan or oversized van. It was actually a 9-passenger van in Scotland. Anybody been to Scotland? Yeah. Anybody driven a car in Scotland? Okay, yeah, that's right, Dylan has. All right, so I was driving this car, and we were on our way to the airport. Well, of course, the data isn't real strong in Scotland, as we're trying to go to Inverness, which is in northern Scotland, and we're trying to go to the airport. And all of a sudden, I have this brilliant idea, Jess. I think I just missed my exit because everything is being a little delayed on the Waze or the app for the GPS, and I did a U-turn. Didn't think much of it, Ruby. And I'm going down, I've probably gone like 20 seconds, Matt, and calmly, Jennifer Alex goes, you're going the wrong direction, don't you? And I went, oh yeah, I pulled over and like seconds later, cars are storming at us at 50, 60, 70 miles per hour. And I'm like, oh, thank you for my wife. Now, the good news, because if anyone knows my wife, I'm like a fire-breathing dragon, and she is like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. And she is so nice. She's like, honey, I think you're going the wrong direction. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I think you are. And then I pull off, I'm like, I think you're right. And that's when the car started storming down. And I remember as I sat there, I'm like, that is my opening story for the summit. And I said, because I realize how many of us might be heading east looking for a sunset that actually is in the west. Or maybe that we're going the entire wrong direction. I mean, look, I know this. I mean, Brian, you know this. But as you stood up here, I guarantee you'd be like, well, I'm not doing that. I mean, 4 hours of prospecting? 4 a.m.? I didn't even know there was oxygen at that time of day. What do you mean go to bed at 9:30 and 10 p.m. like as if he's acting like 10 is really late? I know that. So just ask yourself, in relationship to your dreams, your goals, the most important aspirations of your life, maybe even the most sacred things that matter to you, are you going in the right direction? Look, all of us go in the wrong direction once in a while in our life. And what I heard from Brian is, he's just every day evaluating, trying to check in and say, man, am I going the right direction here? And he has the goal in mind, the objectives in mind, where he wants to go in mind, and so all of a sudden he takes a step back and says, hold on a second here, I need to add one more discipline. Now what some of you are thinking, you're thinking, oh my goodness, well that means he's being more controlled. He has more problems. I already tried to invite him on a trip a week ago, and he's like, no, I can't, I'm gonna be in Italy. I'm all, oh, well, that sounds fun. And I was thinking to myself, to your point, how many trips he's gone on. He went to the awards trip. He went to Hawaii earlier in the year. He was in Christmas in Hawaii. And you're thinking, well, maybe he just doesn't have the freedom that all of us desire. No, actually, I would tell you, if you would write something down, what I heard from that is discipline equals freedom. And some of us forget what the disciplines of this life require. It requires some of your sacrifice. It requires something of you so that you can have more from yourself. And look, at the end of the day, I don't necessarily worry about what you're going to earn or what you're going to achieve. It's really the question is, who do you want to become so that you can have all that you desire? And that challenge is on all of us to become more. That there's progress that equals in this joy of happiness that comes into our lives because we progress. But the story doesn't end there in Scotland, my life. Because I've been driving all week, of course, with the help of Dylan, helping navigate. So now you have two people in the front seat, me driving, and we're on the wrong side of the road. So we get back on the right side. We got to get to the airport, but we now come to there is roundabout after roundabout after roundabout. And once you think you're done with roundabouts in Scotland, there's another roundabout. They're everywhere. So we go around the roundabout. I'm not thinking much of it. I'm thinking we're good. And all of a sudden, she says, you need to be in that lane. I look over for a moment. Alex, I think, doesn't seem to be anybody there. And I move over, and then I hear crunch. So not that I haven't had an accident since I've been 16 years old, might I add, except for hitting cars in my own driveway, that doesn't count. But beyond that, I have not had any accidents in my life since I was 16 years old. But now I can still say I have not had them in the United States of America. I cannot say that I have not had them in Europe. And so I get out, and of course I get to hear the famous words. Today's his birthday, and he didn't want to celebrate it at a summit, so it's Isaac Morris's birthday, and I hear these words I still never forget. What are you doing? And I'm all, nothing. And so we get out of the car, and I come back around, and there's this tiny little Mazda, black, underneath the window level, and he gets out of his car, and he's all, fortunately, the good news is I understood him, barely with the accent, but I did understand him, and of course he said the same thing. What are you doing? And I said, was it my fault? He's like, yes, it was your fault. And then Jennifer the whole time's looking at other cars do the same thing. And yes, it was our fault. And man, he is sitting there shaking. He's like shaking. He's shaking, and he's all, do you have a light? Do you have a light? And I'm like, no, I don't normally smoke, but I'll find you one. And he's sitting there lighting up, and I'm all, put my hand on his shoulder, dude, we're gonna be okay here. I know you don't believe this, but I can pay for this, I promise. And he's just sitting there shaking. He's like, I don't know what to do. I said, well, why don't you take a picture of it? I'm gonna take a picture of it. And anyway, he went and got a bid, and actually today I paid him, which is, I think he's probably pretty happy. And I said, I go, well, that was a nice $2,000 or $3,000 charge in my life, which it was $2,800, by the way. And Jen's like, how do you know how much because I've injured enough cars in my own parking garage, my own driveway, because there's 5 cars with 5 kids, and I forget that they have a car, and then I always side swipe it, get the brand new car, hit it within a week. I am destined to, don't park around me. Other than that, I'm usually pretty good. But I point this out to you, so listen up, guys. So in Scotland, I reminded myself that there's a lot of people going in the wrong direction. I think they're still going in the wrong direction because they don't drive on the right side of the street. Second, y'all have blind spots. And so just like my teenage son, or now he's 20, he says, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. So here's what I would just gently say to you. What are you doing? Because some of you are going the wrong direction, you have blind spots, and I'm sitting there, why am I doing morning ascents? Why am I back at 7:30 a.m. in the morning doing morning ascents 3 times a week? Because I want to make sure that you're doing the right things. I want to make sure that you're setting up your day to prospect. I want to make sure that we uncover any blind spots that exist. So just a simple question you can ask yourself. It's not even a put down, it's not even a rep. Just ask yourself, what are my blind spots? What areas of my life am I going in the wrong direction when I want my life to go a completely different direction? Because no one can tell you that ultimately. I mean, you can sit down with me and I can go down a laundry list of, are you doing this? Are you doing that? And what are you doing? What about that? But you can self-evaluate that yourself. You can just take a moment and ask the question, what are my blind spots? Because I usually figure out that when people take the time to just figure out what direction they're going and what they don't see, they almost see all of it and they recognize they may not be going the right direction. Just ask yourself. It's that simple in so many cases. So just a few core things I just want to bring up in the few minutes that we have is this. Number one thing that I'm watching agents do, and what I love is that Brian was bringing it up, and that is, let's just focus for a minute on your sphere of influence. What are you doing with your sphere? Your past clients, your database, your centers of influence, people who are cheering or hopefully are cheering for your success. Really, what are you doing with them? One of the things that I guarantee you, that if you didn't know how much money Brian was making, you would hear what he said and you would shrug your shoulders and go, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Doesn't seem like it's that hard what he's doing. Seems like he's just staying a little bit focused, doing a few things better than a few others. It seems like he's making a little bit of money doing it. But when you start to truly galvanize your life with the fundamentals of salesmanship and mastering your craft, all of a sudden, everything starts to come together. So I just have 3 questions for you I want to ask you in relationship to your sphere of influence. And whether you're in lending, title, whether you're in real estate, it's all the same. Here's the first one. Is your life getting easier when it comes to working with your sphere? It should be getting easier. If you're doing your job right in relationship to your sphere of influence, every single few months or years, it should be getting easier to produce real estate. Second, number 2, is that your sales prices should be rising. They should be going up just because you've been doing the right stuff with your sphere. And we'll get to that in a second. The third is that if you show up at the holiday party or the family function and people go, hey, I'm not sure, but are you still in real estate? You can be assured that you're totally screwing this thing up. Guaranteed. So I just want you to think about that for a minute. Is it getting easier? Your price is going up? And are you personally seeing it all get easier? And if it's all getting easier, then you're probably doing some good things. There's 5 things I just want you to focus on with your sphere. Look, the many years that we've had to just simply get business, and well, Brian nailed it. All of a sudden, you start making 200 grand, 300 grand, 400 grand, $500,000, and you sit there and go, okay, I've arrived, I'm good, it's all great, I don't need to do more, I'm happy, I'm satisfied. But I just would always ask you this question, what's next? It's the same thing when I asked him down. By the way, I do remember that in Vegas, when I say he made $1 million, I said, Kevin, basically, what's next? When are you getting to 2? They may say, well, aren't I supposed to be happy for Brian? They got, well, of course, I mean, later they got to 1. But I do know this, that if he stopped at 1, he wouldn't become who he is today, and to where he's now charting close to 4. And then, like he said, he wants to get to 5. The reality is there's not any one of us in here who can't do similar things. It's just a question of sacrifice. It's a question of discipline. It's a question of doing things instead of trying to reinvent everything. You have all these examples of showing you exactly what you need to be doing. There's nothing you need to reinvent. It's already there. But you want it to be easy. And it's not easy. But it's simple. But again, what's simple to do is just as simple not to do. So number 1, write these 5 things down. Number 1, make sure you make sure that on a quarterly basis, you're calling every single person in your sphere. I'm not going to get into the depth of, like Brian talked about, ABCs, and that for another day. Come to a training class from either Ruby or Rick and other great leaders that we have in this company that are trained on this stuff, and Russ and others that are trained on this every single day. But number 1, you have to communicate with them on a quarterly basis. Bring value to their life. Number 2, email them. Yes, get them on a campaign of some sort on a monthly basis at minimum. Number 3, mail them. Yeah, snail mail, hard mail, right? A mail that they throw into the garbage. You say, well, why do I do that if they're going to throw it away? Because the day that they don't throw it away is the day that you'll be glad that they had your number. Number 4, I would recommend that you're making sure, yes, that you do some client appreciations. I just found something I can coach him on. This is great, right? But my point is yes, associate with your people. Bring value and love and light to their life because you showed up in it. And number 5, let's make sure that we actually meet them and talk to some of them. And my observation, if you will call them, if you will email them, if you will mail them, if you'll do client appreciations, and you will spend time with what I call your golden contacts, the ones that will refer you often and daily, literally to you selling real estate, those are the people you wine and dine. Those are the people you take care of. Those are the people that you spend time with at a mega level. And the reason that you do that is because when you do that, everything gets easier in this business. Your prices go up. The job is easier. People aren't asking you if you're in the business, they're asking you for your advice in the business. That's what begins to happen. And if I was just to do a few side things, I would tell you this. Videos are critical right now. Send a video to the people that you're meeting with. Send a video to the people that you're going to associate with. Give them a 30, 60-second video that just simply says, hey, I'm excited to see you. I'm excited to spend time with you. Hey, I'm looking forward to a conversation with you. Get engagement at some level and in some way. That's the first thing I'm watching agents do that they're not doing anything. I don't care whether your focus points are buying as a buyer's agent, whether you're a selling listing agent, or whether you're a combination of both. Your sphere is the single most important asset that you will ever build and create. Brian again just said that most of his time is spent in his database. Well, if that's the case, then that means that nearly $2 million+ a year comes from that database to him. And I would just ask you, how many properties have you purchased? How many dollars have you gotten from income properties that pay you $2+ million a year? It is the single most important asset that you will ever create. And yet we will discount it, ignore it, and chase every piece of other type of business before we focus on the one thing that is the greatest asset that we will ever build in the game of real estate. It puts you in front of the aggregators. It puts you in front of the pay-per-clicks. It puts you in front of the Zillow leads. It puts you in front of everything. If you will protect your sphere of influence like it is absolute gold, it is raw cash sitting in your hand because of what you do with your sphere. If you want to have a legacy, you want to be able to sell a practice, you want to be able to sell your business, and not just accumulate cash along the way, but have something that has value. It is what you do when you work and you protect and you create and you build the asset of your sphere of influence. Don't underestimate the magnitude of it. It is such an important part of the business model. And it again makes your life easier, it makes your prices go up, and it makes it to where all of a sudden you're never being asked, if you're in the business, you're being asked about how to sell something in the business or buy something in the business. Any thoughts or questions on that? Let me close with this, which means 18 minutes later. It's kind of my tagline, Ben. 18 minutes from now is what we're gonna do. Try to keep it to 5 minutes, that's what we're gonna do. But I just wanna pose something to you. So many times, right, you have people who will help you try to focus on the right things. I love what Jennifer talked about in relationship to the story that we tell ourselves. You know, one of the things I've recognized over our lifetime is that you can create stories about yourself and about others that serve you greatly, or you can tell stories to yourself and to others that will not serve you so greatly. No matter how confident you may think that any of us are, there's always just a little bit of trepidation speaking to such a motley crew. Jennifer leaned over to me and she's like, man, my hands are sweaty. And I said, but your best is yet to come because you've prepared your whole life for this very moment. And you say, well, what's the big deal of that? It's about just simply crafting a story for every single one of you in this room, individually, for yourself. The story that you're going to tell yourself. See, some of you have said, I could never do what Brian does. And some of you in this room are saying, how am I going to figure out, what do I need to do to figure out what he does? That's a whole different mindset, it's a whole different story. Some of you will say, I can't follow that schedule. Some of you will say to yourself, how will I follow that schedule? Some of you will say, I don't want to work that hard. Some of you will say to yourself, how do I work harder? Some of you will say, gosh, I'm not that motivated, and I just never will be. And some of you will say, how do I get more motivated and more disciplined and more refined and more focused? It all comes down to the story that you choose to tell yourself. It's the message that you penetrate into your mind and your heart over and over like a recording of what you think is possible. And some of you have bought into the idea that whatever income you're earning right now, that's what you've bought into. From the market to your activities to the income that you earn. It is all what you've bought into. And he's trying to figure out how to buy into 5 million. Some of you are trying to figure out how to just make 100 grand. But either way, you have to buy into something that takes you to the next level. And it will all be dictated, all of it based on the discipline, the structure, the mechanics of your day. That's why in coaching, I always ask that one question. What are you doing with your time? And what you find is people who are highly efficient. And then you have people who waste their time. And I'm not even here to make judgment one is right or wrong. But what's wrong or right is that when I see someone who really wants something, desires something, wants to have something, and then I watch them just waste their life, waste their time, waste their days and their activities because they don't get clear on what they ultimately want. In the end, I just point out, there is literally nothing about this business you can't achieve. So go do it. Go take this by storm. Stop talking yourself out of everything. Stop playing small. Stop playing insignificant and acting like, you know, woe is me and you don't understand and my life is so good. Stop all of it and just pick a summit. Pick a point on a peak of a mountain of your life and say, I will stop at nothing until I get to that point. Because you're either going to go for something or you're going to rationalize, discount, complain, whine, point fingers, say excuses that make it to where you don't have to go there. Because you won't stay in between it. You'll either rationalize and become negative, or you will go for it and you will see what you're ultimately capable of. I'm driving along in my golf cart this last weekend with Isaac. I put my hand on his back and I tapped him on his back as he was driving. He said, hey, what if You gave your very, 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 very best at something. What would happen? What would happen if at the end of the day you gave everything to what you were trying to do? What do you think would happen? And like any of you would say, well, I would accomplish whatever I want. Ding, ding, ding! Whatever you want because you gave your very, very best. What I hope is that when you lay your head down at night, or maybe even, well, where I would say worse yet, and hopefully not too soon, but you lie your head down maybe right before you're about to pass, and you're able to ask yourself, did I give my very best? Did you try to cut corners every day? Did you just kind of exist? Did you kind of just not really try your hardest? Because all I know is, yeah, I'm a believer, individual faith, that I believe, yes, there's something after this. But man, I watch a lot of people waste their days complaining, whining, and excusing, and rationalizing why they don't have what they want and what they want to have, because they never pick a point or a peak on a mountain or a summit that they're truly going to go for. I cannot express enough to you that there is nothing about this business you cannot accomplish. So make sure that you don't lie down at night with regret of your day, disappointed in your effort, a day of complaint, a day of complaining, a day of negativity, a day of mocking, pointing fun, saying what you will or won't do. But what if you just did it? What if you gave your very best? What if you did everything you could to match up to what someone like a Brian was doing? What would be your results? To his point, as I've watched him mature and grow over these many years, and it's been my privilege to be a friend to him and to be part of his life, and I've watched him mature and grow. And I know that the guy that I met was making $500,000, ain't the same guy earning $4 million. I hope it's not, because of who he spends his time with, what he reads, what he studies, what he does, because of what he wants and what he wants to become in his life. And although he may not be invigorated by a new this or a buy of that, what does seem to inspire him is what is possible for him, what is capable for Brian. And I hope that we can all learn from that. And I'm so grateful for each one of you that you're here, that you're ignited, that you recognize some shifts in the market, you recognize where we can all go together. But don't waste this time. These are some of the greatest times for an agent who knows what they're doing, who lives a life of discipline, who is skilled, who has the right mindset, who has the right disciplines. Man, there is nothing that can stop you except you. Remember that. Again, it's an honor to associate with you guys. Drive safe, have an extraordinary rest of the week, and let's finish strong as we move into the last quarter.